Hello everybody, this is the Rabid Hedgehog, and welcome to a wonderful spring day in Oklahoma City. And well, notice the clouds in the area, and that's what I want to discuss today. We're talking about riding a motorcycle in the rain. Now granted, what's heading for us right now is not exactly what you would want to be riding in anyway. We've actually got some tornado warnings and stuff of us down south in the area, so it's a possibility that these could get pretty rowdy. So definitely don't want to be out in a storm like this today. But nonetheless, let's talk about what we're going to be doing whenever it is time for the rain. So as I'm sitting here at the stoplight, first thing I want to discuss is step one into getting ready for riding a motorcycle in the rain is to actually make sure that you yourself are prepared as the rider. As the rider, you want to make sure that you're wearing some watertight clothing. I've got my water pants on and stuff like that. Also, my jacket that I wear that's from fly racing is completely waterproof, and the gloves I'm wearing are also waterproof as well. So you want to make sure that you have good waterproof gear on. You can also get a couple of things that'll go inside your jacket that'll protect your neck area and things like that, so that way that you don't have water flowing in there as you're trying to ride. So that's the good news there. You can always get enough things to clean the water out of you and everything like that. Make sure your boots are covered or your shoes, and that way you'll be a happy rider, because if you get wet, you start to get cold, you start to get miserable, and you don't start to function correctly. And as a rider, you want to be able to function correctly at all times. So definitely remember, be prepared yourself with the water gear and everything of that nature. Second part that you want to go with, make sure your bike is ready. And how you get your bike ready is you actually go ahead and take a look at everything. Make sure that all your connections and everything are buckled up and good to go, and all your nuts and bolts are tight. You don't want any water getting into places they don't need to be getting into. Make sure your tires are properly inflated. That way that they can provide the best traction that you can get while you're riding. So that way it's ready to go. You know, just do your typical safety checks and make sure there's no exposed wiring or anything absolutely crazy that would short out in the event of getting in rain. So then, the next part is during the actual ride itself, you want to make sure that you ride for the road condition. The wetter it gets, the crazier it's going to get. And especially right at the beginning part of the rain is where it's the most dangerous, as your roads usually have a bunch of oil and things like that that have accumulated over the dry time, and that'll pond onto the road first as it starts to come off. And I will just say this, most of your roads are shaped where they come up in the middle and then back down on the other side, so the left lane at the beginning into the right lane will all be slick because it's going to come rolling off the middle on each side. But as it rains a little bit further, the left lane is going to be a little bit safer, and the left side of that left lane as well, because it starts to get all that stuff washed off and it starts to wash away. But always look at the road and see where that water's puddling and things like that to know where it's going to be a little bit easier, where it's going to be a little bit safer. Because if you're going to be riding in puddles, we're going to probably be riding in a collection of oil too. So sometimes you have to hit the middle part of the road instead of the lane, because it's going to be the driest area and the safest area, because it won't accumulate that oil and things like that. So definitely when you're riding, just check where that water's puddling, make sure you're good there. Also, look out for things that are washing off into the road. Sometimes if you're in an area like where I live at, you'll see when I get up there, you'll see dirt and you'll see grime and you'll see sand and you'll see pebbles and everything out there. So when you get up to those areas where those streets are actually, like the dirt roads and stuff around you, are washing out and going into the main street, be mindful of that as well, and know the pattern that it's gonna, you know, wash out through. So that way when you're cutting through some water, sometimes you're gonna go into standing water, which is not really recommended for car or bike. But if you know the area and you know what ponds, then just be careful when you cut into it, and know that it's going to be extra slick there, because it's going to have crap like this, as you can see. Now this road doesn't have dirt around it, it's just that it has a propensity to flood, so it'll come up over the stuff over there and it will flood on that. And also, there's another good tip: know your roads around your area. Make sure you don't ride into an area that floods consistently. Make sure you ride in higher lying areas and things like that. That way you can avoid the possibility of riding in puddles and things like that. So when it's actually raining a lot more and the areas are cleaned off and you're riding behind somebody like this, be mindful of the distance behind you, because you're going to pick up spray on your helmet, which will make it really hard to see. So you want to make sure that you keep back away from the vehicles as best you can, but you want to stay within where their tire tracks are, because if you're in the area and there's no puddling or anything like that, the tire tracks that they're leaving behind will give you the most traction available. So that way you'll be good there. So, you know, just kind of want to discuss that with you about riding in the rain. Now the next part is now that you're avoiding all these fun things, you know, like the puddling roads and things like that, that now you're paying attention to, you know, your turns and things like that. And remember something, motorcycle tires are not exactly like car tires. Most of them are fairly slick versus what the car tire is, especially down the middle, because that's where you ride on the most, and it's going to be, you know, most of your traction's over whenever you're actually in a turn. That's where most of your gullies and channels and everything are in your tread. So be remembering of that as you're riding, that it's going to be more slick than you're used to. It's going to be definitely something that you need to slow down for. You don't need to try to race to get anywhere. You don't need to try to get in a hurry. Just be safe. Slow it down. Stay in a good groove that keeps the least amount of water on you. And let's see, I'm just kind of waiting for everybody to turn here. Alright, sorry about that. So just kind of keep it in an area where, you know, you're watching for the puddles and things like that. And when you're actually in turns, make sure you take the turns nice and slow. You don't want to try to, you know, hard accelerate into a turn and things like that, because you'll just slide straight over. Because, you know, a lot of the times your turns that you're going to be making are going to be on the outward flow of that water coming off the middle of the road, and we'll have a lot of things built up there in the corners. There's a lot of drainage that usually comes down to those corners as well, because most roads are hills and things like that, and most of the time your drainage is at those corners. So you want to make sure that whenever you actually get into the corner that you're not going to, you know, go too quick and things like that. Just take a nice, easy, slow turn. You don't need to lean it over. It's not anything big. You're just riding to ride, and riding because you enjoy riding, and you're an all-weather rider. So, and that's what I like to do. I actually like to ride in every bit of weather possible. I like to ride in cold. I like to ride in rain and things like that. The only time I tend not to ride in rain is when it's like supposed to be today, where we have severe weather and there's possibility of hail and some other things. And that's something you want to be mindful of, is the forecast. If it's just a rain shower or some mist or some things like that, and there's not going to be any hail or anything extracurricular involved that'll be very painful as a rider, then go ahead and ride. I mean, there's no reason that any little bitty rainstorm will stop you from riding. Really, if you're wearing the right gear, you're going to be just as dry as you would be if you're not, you know, if you're riding in the dry. Most of the time I stay really dry. I don't really have to worry about anything like getting wet or anything like that, because I wear the right gear. And that's just what I'm saying. You can get gear pretty cheap from Cycle Gear in and around your areas, if you've got one of those, or your local motorcycle shop. Harley dealers I know have pants and everything for you, so do most Kawasaki dealers and all that. So your dealer is going to be able to provide you with the riding gear that you're going to need, so that way you can ride in the rain and not have any problem whenever you do so, and stay dry and be happy. I mean, you don't ever want to just leave your bike in the garage just because it's raining a little bit. You still need to get out there and enjoy the day, because I really do like riding in the rain. It keeps you cool, and you know, it's actually just as good to me. I don't care. One more thing about riding in the rain, and it's going to depend on the kind of bike that you have. Your final drive, if it's a chain, you definitely want to remember, as soon as you're done riding in the rain, excuse me, you want to definitely make sure to lube your chain, and, you know, clean it off, re-lube it, and get it ready to go for the next time, because anything that you get wet like that can and will rust, and you don't want your chain to rust out and prematurely wear out. So every time it rains and you're out there in it with a chain drive, always just go ahead and put it up on your jack stand at home, get that chain cleaned off, get that chain re-lubed. That way you're good to go again. This is the Rabid Hedgehog. If you do have any more questions, or if you want to go over anything else while riding, leave it in the comments below. I like to hear from my subscribers, and try to get back with them as quick as I can, either through email or through comments or anything that I can get back to them with. I will try to get a couple more videos out. I did get to ride a couple of the Yamahas, and I gotta say I wasn't too happy with them, but I'll put those reviews up here in a moment as soon as I get a chance to. We'll see everybody later. Keep the shiny side up, and to my Okie friends out there, keep mindful of the weather this season. Have a good one.